Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Nazareth. Welcome to our suffering country. Well, allow me first to thank Manal for this lovely introduction. I almost didn't know who is she speaking about.
She's also modest.
I think people should do what they believe they should do. And this is what I'm doing. I'm doing what I believe in. And I'm doing that because I believe that in our nature as a human being, there is a need to seek always peace, to seek justice, and to seek human interaction that makes you feel good. And you want always to try to protect others from suffering, from violence, from wars, and whatever we should be doing should be coming from that side of the beliefs. To tell the truth, she said she will be talking about something that she doesn't live or doesn't suffer from. When I was asked to meet you, I was asked to speak about the identity crisis, and I said, what crisis? I mean, why do you think that we, the Palestinians, have an identity crisis? This is something I think that this is a myth that usually is developed more and more in order to tell about us more than what we really feel. I don't have any crisis. I'm a human being. I'm a Palestinian, and full stop. I'm not Palestinian of 48. I'm not Palestinian of 67. This is only a matter of figures that are connected to our identity in order not to connect us together, but at the contrary, to bring barriers among us, so that as if Palestinian 48 is different from his own identity than Palestinian of 67, than refugee Palestinian, or I don't know what other things. Sometimes they call us Israeli Arabs. I have to say, there are very few things that I hate in the world. One of them is this figure of speech, Israeli Arabs, as if we are the Arabs of someone. Either we are the Arabs of the Arab nation, or we are a new kind of Arabs that was created by the state of Israel, and now we are uprooted from our own identity as Palestinians, as part of the Arab nation, and suddenly we are the Arabs of Israel. That this kind of unrecognized creature that should be designed in a way that fits into the Israeli state. And I think this is a process that the Israeli state started immediately after 1948, when they understood very clearly that they were stuck with us. The idea was that we will not be here. The idea of transferring us started in 1948. Many people had to leave either because of the war, of the fear of being afraid, or because they were really promised by the Arab armies that if they leave for 2 weeks, they will finish the war and they will come back. For any reason, people had to leave. And some of us insisted not to leave, and it was not by chance. There were people who understood that if they leave this country, if they leave their homes, they will become refugees, and no one will be dealing with this problem until their many years would go, and it will be a long struggle. And those people, I still hear the stories of those people who were, by the way, communists mainly, who slept in front of the trucks, who were coming, especially here in Nazareth, to bring all the Arabs into the trucks and taking them to the borders. And some of them just laid in front of those trucks and begged people, telling them not to leave. Don't leave. If you leave, you will lose your homeland, and there will be a problem to come back. I think our identity is more taken from the fact that we are the people of the land, of this land. We are people, part of the Palestinian people in general. All of our political activism since 1948 till today was mainly, first of all, to defend ourselves as a national minority that was kept in this borders of 1948 of the state of Israel, and second, to protect the right of our own people to be, to establish their own state. When the Palestinians inside Israel started the solution or the idea of two states as the solution of the conflict or the continuous occupation, we did that even before the PLO had adopted that solution. The leadership of the Palestinians inside Israel suggested the solution of two states after they understood that going back to the partition decision of the Hebrew state and the Arab state will not be implemented, and the only solution that can be reached now after 1967 occupation is the two-state solution. Why I'm saying this, I sometimes feel that you cannot defend very much the things that you take for granted. And I take my identity as for granted. I'm Palestinian. I don't have to explain that. I don't feel like I need to explain that. I feel this is so deep in me that I don't have many proofs or explanations to explain it. So I will move on, and you just take it as it is. I am Palestinian. We are Palestinians. Everything in us is Palestinian. Of course, we are like normal people. Sometimes there is influence from the political or economical or social situation that we are living in. But if you ask all of us, we look at ourselves as part of the Palestinian people, and that's it. We have to understand that this national minority until 1965 lived under the military rule of the Israeli state. If you, and I looked a little bit at your program, I understood that you took a lot of tours and you saw what is happening in the occupied territories, and these 2 days also here inside Israel. And you probably saw the checkpoints and you heard about how people don't have a freedom of movement and they have to take different kind of authorizations from the Israeli occupation in order to move from one area to another or to enter into Israel. That was the situation until 1965 among the Palestinians who became citizens of Israel, meaning our villages and towns were cut from each other. Our parents could not move from one village to another without getting an authorization from the military officer who was responsible for that village and that town. Of course, there was not only lack of freedom of movement, but also lack of freedom of expression, lack of freedom of organizing ourselves. But yet and because of that military rule that existed at that point, many of our lands surrounding the villages and towns were confiscated under the claim that they are not used. They did not allow the farmers to reach their land and to plant it for many years. And then they came with the law that says if you don't plant your agriculture land, then the state has the right to take it from you in order to use it for the public use, and that's how we lost also many of our lands. I don't know how much you know about our history. If you know what happened through in Nakba, and the fact that more than around 500 villages were destroyed totally. Many people who lived in those villages and towns lives 1, 2, up to 10 kilometers from their ruined villages inside Israel. They are citizens of Israel. They have all the proofs that they own the land in their villages and towns that were ruined in 1948, and still they are not allowed to go back to their villages and to live there. If you pass tomorrow toward the west, you will see, for example, a village or a mushab, a small Jewish town called Tzipori. That was Safuri, the Palestinian village before 1948. It is inhabited now with only Jews. The people of Safuri, the majority of them are in Ain al-Hilwi in Lebanon, but also many families, hundreds of families, are living in Nazareth, far only 4 kilometers from their original homes and their lands, and they cannot approach it, and they cannot live there, and they cannot use the land that they owned, their family owned. So, whenever we are speaking about the Palestinian national minority inside Israel, we are talking about a minority that managed to build itself by itself and to resist all the policies of discrimination, of oppression since 1948 till today. And I usually say sometimes they tell me, if you were living in an Arab state, you would be so eloquent and you would speak English so good. You owe that to the Israeli state. And I say that usually whatever I am, I owe it to myself, to my family, to my community, and despite the Israeli state's policies against us. I have to say that until 1965, people continued to try to get on their feet after the Nakba. It was a traumatic issue. I still remember one, like less than 10 years ago, I asked my mom, and she was one of those who survived the Nakba. I asked her, how come you never told us? Where were you on the day that they occupied Nazareth? And what happened with you? And she looked at me, and I always remember that. She looked and said, how would that be useful for you? We were trying to live. And I think in this very simple answer, we can understand what kind of resistance, what kind of understanding those people had at that time. They understood that they are alone, and they understood that they have to survive, and they understood that they have to love the life in order to be able to continue. And they oppressed all their traumatic memories in order to be able to continue. In 1976, we created a national day. If you ask about, if you already asked about our identity, we created the Land Day. The Land Day that came later to be a national day for all the Palestinians, not only for the Palestinians inside Israel. We created that because we faced at that point another wave of confiscation of our lands. At that point, they wanted to confiscate 15,000 dunams of land in the triangle between the villages Sakhnin, Arabi, Deir Hanna, very close from here. By the way, I'm living from here to Sakhnin. So, and we declared as a Palestinian minority that we are holding for the first time a general strike. A general strike, we will not go to schools, we will not go to work, and we will demonstrate in our villages and towns. At that day, 6 of our citizens were killed by the Israeli police in the villages and towns. 5 men, 1 woman. That was a turn point in our, first of all, morality, in the understanding that we are able to do something, and because we managed to stop the confiscation, and the state has had to not to continue the process of confiscation, we understood that when we are united, when we are together, we are able to change things, and we are able to stand up for our rights. I think that was a turning point in our history, and we continued later. Of course, I can, as you know, since 1976 till today, there's a lot of years, and I can continue to tell you about the different points through our history that created our understanding and our political activism. But I have to say that I will leave you at that point in 1976 and will come for what's happening today. I understood that you had a tour today. If I'm not, you didn't have it. Okay. When are you going to Al-Hiran and the Negev? Ah, you did it. Okay. I understood that you visited Al-Hiran. Why I'm saying I jumped from 1976 till today, because actually the plans for today, not only for Al-Hiran, but for the whole Naqab, for the whole south of our country, of Israel, is to confiscate around 800,000 dunams of land that are owned by the Arab Palestinian Bedouins in the south, and to evacuate and demolish 36 villages. Yesterday, the Israeli police demolished Al-Araqib village for the 110 times. This is the 110 times they have demolished. But you have to understand, when you say that they demolished the village for 110 times, it means we rebuilt it for 111 times. Meaning, we might not be able, until now, there are very brave people in Al-Araqib and in Al-Hiran that they are still resisting. And they don't want to be refugees and displaced in their own homeland. And they don't want to lose their own property. But it is not an issue of individuals. It is not the issue of Al-Hiran or Al-Araqib or any other village in the south. It's an issue of colonialist approach that don't see the indigenous people who are living on the ground and see in them less human beings and treat them as well the same. Things have changed since the beginning till today in one thing, that in my opinion, the Israeli elite, the Jewish Israeli elite who is leading the state have changed in the last 20 years. In the beginning, there was an elite intellectual coming from Europe after the Second World War, have a socialist approach with liberal democracy values. I'm not saying that in order to say that they did not commit any crimes or any injustice actions against us at that point. But at least at that point, they wanted to create what is called the Jewish democratic state. And they wanted to at least have good connection with the outside world. Today, and especially after Rabin was killed, one of the very turning points, in my opinion, in the Israeli politics was when Yitzhak Rabin was killed, assassinated by another Jewish citizen. Why I'm saying this? Because people think that Yitzhak Rabin was killed mainly because he signed the peace agreement at that point, Oslo, with the Palestinians. In my opinion, Rabin was killed mainly because he was willing to legitimize our citizenship and our ability to influence the political decision in Israel. And why I'm saying this? Because Yitzhak Rabin was the first and the only prime minister in Israel who was willing to rely on the votes or the representatives, the members of the Knesset, the Arab members of the Knesset, in order to sign the agreement. At that point, if you take out the representatives of the Palestinian Arab minority from the calculation of 120 members, Rabin did not have a majority. It was an equal situation in the parliament. We came at that point, our representative, who was one of them, the leading one was Tawfiq Zayyad, who used to be the mayor of Nazareth also for many years. We took a decision. We told Yitzhak Rabin from the beginning, we are willing to support you from outside. We are not asking to be part of a government that is still occupying our own people in the West Bank and Gaza. But we are willing to support you as long you are taking the right decisions. Meaning, if you are going for peace, if you are going for equal rights for the Palestinian citizens of Israel, we will support you. We will vote and you will have our votes. And you can guarantee that. And that's what happened actually in many steps that were coming to the Knesset at that point. And I think that what made the right furious about Yitzhak Rabin, and they had to stop it. Because that was the beginning of the state of Israel to start to think about us as equal citizens. And that we have the right for influence and to be part of the political decision as much as it can be also for the future political decision. Rabin was killed and the right wing started to be in power. And the Jewish-Israeli society has shifted through the years more and more to the right. Even the so-called Zionist left. There is such a thing. At least that's what they call it. I don't see any way to be a Zionist and to be a left. There is no way. There's a built-in contradiction, like Jewish and democratic. The minute you say that the state is a Jewish state, first of all, that's what I ask. Tell me, what do you mean by Jewish? Is it Jewish versus secular religious? Is it Jewish versus the others who are in the state? If you are saying this is a Jewish state, then you are immediately telling me that I am a second stage citizen, that I am not equal, because this is not my state. There is no way to be democratic and to say from the first beginning identification of the state that it is only for part of it. It's only for 80% of the citizens. And the 20%, well, this is not your state, but we are welcoming you. This is democracy. This is not democracy. This is an ethnic state, if you continue like this. And especially now, when the right wing is in the, and I have to know where I will try to summarize so that I will leave you time to ask questions. The so-called Zionist left, even by its positions, have shifted also to the right. Today, when we are in the Knesset, I have to tell you, there was only one law. This is the cadency that have legislated the highest numbers of laws since the establishment of the state till today. Most of it, either racist laws or crawling annexation of the West Bank. This is a trend now. There's masses of laws brought into the Knesset that the main idea is to implement the Israeli law on the settlements, which mean annexating the settlements, and little by little maybe annexating other areas. They are talking about annexation of Area C in the West Bank. They are talking very clearly about annexating large blocks of settlements. And they are legislating also laws that very clearly are pushing for either racist ideas, like what we had last Wednesday when they legislated in first reading 2 laws that forbid the call for prayer, the Muslim call for prayer, al-mu'adhin, when he calls for prayer. And we think that this new elite that is existing, it's not only a very extreme right, in my opinion. The discourse among these groups has turned into a discourse of the old testimony, of the whole land, the big land of Israel, talking about this is our right, even in the West Bank, and this is the homeland of our ancestors, and we came back and we are not leaving. Most of the ministers in this government are saying very clearly, there is no two-state solution. We are going back to our homeland and we are going to stay there. Meaning, one big Israel in the West Bank, inside 1948, and more becoming more and more Jewish and less democratic. Even the margins of the liberal democracy, it's threatened in these days. There are laws and practices that are trying to damage the position of the High Supreme Court in Israel. There is a massive attack and laws on the media in Israel, and of course the legislations I told you about. So actually, this new elite that is governing wants to push us not only outside the political legitimacy, and of course you have heard about, mentioned Manal in the beginning that I'm part of the joint list. You have heard how the joint list was created? No? Okay. Okay, in 1 minute to say that? Okay. I'm not that good, Manal. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I hope you will have time to discuss it. In the last election, there's a discourse developed in the last years against us as Palestinian citizens of Israel, connecting our citizenship, because we are demanding full equal citizenship in Israel, connecting our citizenship to what is called loyalty for the state. Meaning you have to be loyal in order to continue to be a citizen and to enjoy your rights as citizens. That's why they raised the threshold for the Knesset in the last election, which created a situation that none of the 4 parties that were represented in the last Knesset could manage to enter the Knesset again. That's that was one of the reasons, and a big reason, why we came together to be the joint list. The joint list is representing the four parties coming together, having one political, economical, social program, but not compromising our own ideologies, because we are coming from different ideologies. And that's how we managed to overcome this attempt to get us out of the political activism. And of course, there were other issues related to that. But today, when we are seeing how they are acting toward creating a bigger Israeli state by annexating parts of the West Bank, when we are hearing that they think that there is no way to have the two-state solution, when they are making this connection between loyalty, serving in the army, they want us to serve in the occupying army, or you don't get your rights if you don't serve, we understand that the attack is more on our real existence. It's not only on our political activism, it's on our real existence and the legitimacy of existing in this country. And this, I think, is one of the issues that we understand why we need to act more and more in the Israeli society, Jewish Israeli society in general. The situation today that if we are not part of this formula, the right wing in Israel will continue to control. There is only one way for the Jewish Israelis who want to get rid of this fundamentalist Jewish parties and right-wing parties, is to legitimize our political weight and to use it in order to overcome the right wing. I don't know if the Israeli society is ready for this, but for sure, this is our own way to keep our existence and to keep our legitimacy in our own homeland as Palestinians. Thank you.